please all rise and join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As we always do, we've got an employee of the month here. We actually were thinking about him as an employee of the month last year, but it was the winter. And being that he's a lifeguard, we felt that maybe we'd better wait until the weather gets a little better. So it's an honor of mine to announce the employee of the month as David Q. Nicholas. He's a lifeguard at Cooper's Beach. Nichols. And date of hire was June 30th, 2013. Here's a photo of him. He's not in attendance, so I don't think I can see him. But David, we have your photo here and a nice little plaque for you. And thank you for all your services to the village. Being a lifeguard and doing some of the ocean rescue stuff that we've been recently talking about is very key to me. So next we have a great pleasure to bring an oath of office of several police officers. The one terrific thing that we have done, I think, here is, and it's always been talked about, been mentioned to us on numerous occasions, is how often do we take personnel that are in the village and move them to different positions. We're a small village, so it's very difficult to keep interest, especially on a longer-term individual. And by bringing these officers into new ranks and new positions, I think is absolutely a terrific thing, and along with bringing in 2 new officers. So, Chief, I'll leave you to start the dedication.
It's up to Steve.
Do you want to say anything, or?
No, I just appreciate the support of the village board for the police department. They've been very supportive of us for at least a decade, and it's allowed us to progress quite a bit and become a much better and more professional organization. And thank you.
Yeah, and we thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Suzanne?
How are we doing? Good. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Suzanne Hertel,
I, Suzanne
do
Hertel,
solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I'll support the Constitution of the United
and
States
the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and I will faithfully discharge
and will faithfully discharge
the duties of Lieutenant
the duties of
of
Lieutenant
the Southampton Village Police Department
in the Southampton Village Police
according
Department,
to the best of my ability.
best of my ability.
Congratulations. I, John Rodecker,
I, John Rodecker,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United
and
States
the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New
and I
York,
will faithfully discharge
and I will faithfully discharge
the duties of Sergeant
the duties of Sergeant
of the Southampton Village Police
of
Department
the Southampton Village Police Department
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations. Okay, Kevin? You know the drill.
Yep.
I, Kevin Dunkirk,
I, Kevin Dunkirk,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to support the Constitution of the United States
to support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York.
and they will faithfully discharge
And I will faithfully discharge
the duties of Sergeant
the duties of
of the
Sergeant
Southampton Village Police Department
of the Southampton Village Police Department
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my abilities.
Congratulations. All right, Kim? How are you? Good. Raise your right hand. I, Kimberly Radigan,
I, Kimberly
do
Radigan,
solemnly swear
do solemnly
that I
swear
will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United
and the
States
Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New
and I will
York,
faithfully discharge
and I will faithfully
the
discharge
duties of detective
the duties of detective
of the Southampton Village Police Department
of the Southampton Village Police
according to the
Department,
best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Andrew Cutner. Raise your right hand, repeat after me. I, Andrew C. Cutner,
I, Andrew C. Kutner,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and I will faithfully discharge
and will faithfully discharge
the duties of police officer
the duties of police officer
of the Southampton Village Police Department
Southampton Village
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And last but not least, Nick Fino.
Okay.
I'm surprised he didn't jump on that first. I, Nicholas Aquino,
I, Nicholas Aquino,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and I will faithfully discharge
and I will faithfully
the
discharge
duties of police officer
the duties of police officer
of the Southampton Village Police Department
to the Southampton Village Police Department
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Chief, if you could call them all up here for a little photo.
Going down the line.
No, I think
You're awful young. Well, we certainly lost the majority of the crowd on that one. A couple of you staying. Chief, you're still here.
And Franny's still here.
Franny, of course, in the back.
For now.
In public comment section, we have Evelyn Conrad.
That was a nice ceremony. I'm glad I saw that. It's very nice. The last time I asked for your help, Bill and you, Mayor Mike, got it done. It was when the building department was not following the state's asbestos rules. This time, it's even more serious. The rules, the law that they're breaking is your village law. I'm not going to read this whole thing to you. Your attorney has an exaggerated great respect for local laws, so let me just give you the site. It's 11616, about corner clearance. This has become a severe problem in the Roscoe area. I'm sure in other areas too, but in Roscoe particularly, because thanks to the zoning code, houses today eat up the whole backyard. And so people have put shrubbery and fences in the front. We used to have nice, level, green lawn that everybody could see across. From my driveway, I was able to see Hill Street. Well, that's gone. There is one particular fence, but there are others, that was erected without building department permit. It's 6 feet tall, it's a stockade fence, and there's some planting around it. And it happens to be on what I'm aware of as the single most dangerous corner in that area. Very shortly, we have no sidewalks. There was never any need for sidewalks. Now, very soon, there'll be boys and girls on bikes going around that corner, women pushing strollers, and there are no sidewalks. There's an SUV that cuts that corner that I swear, twice I thought she was going to hit me. I think it's a she. I was a little nervous after that. Now, the local law very wisely says that there should be no fencing and no planting higher than 30 inches near a street corner. I have talked to the building department time and again. What I've been getting is alternate facts. I don't think we need those here, and occasionally a lot of lip. So I'm appealing to you, please, see that that fence is taken down.
Could you explain where it is again?
Yeah.
It is at 58 Roscoe Drive. I've pointed it out to some of you whom I've taken around for drives. Nothing's been done. And as I say, now with kids on bikes and women pushing strollers, no sidewalks, remember, this is really a menace. Of course, I don't want to get killed that way either. I've got another cherished way, like going down Nosedive or one of the other ski slopes without a helmet. And that would be a better way to go than a car crash on Roscoe Drive. So could you please, this specifies exactly what the local law is, and it's a good one. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else with a public comment? Yes.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Katerina Grinko of 2 Latham, 51 Hill Street, Southampton. I'm here on behalf of Whitefield Condominium, just appearing in support of the proposed local law regarding 8-foot tall
Your fence?
fence. Yes.
Then you can.
Okay, sorry.
Any others? Okay. So moving past the public comment, we have board presentations. Le Chalat, St. Jude Children's Hospital benefit.
Good evening. I would like to make a presentation to have 7 Wall Street for the benefit of St. Jude. So I have maybe 5 packages, it's going to be easier.
Sir, could we just have your name for the record and organization that you're representing?
I'm sorry? sir?
Name for the record?
I'm sorry. I'm Thierry Gelormini. I own the restaurant across the street, Le Charlot, on 36 Main Street.
I'll just take one.
Right. So the idea is really to raise awareness for St. Jude, for the children that have cancer. It is not really about my restaurant. I want to take the opportunity to have some fundraising that day at the restaurant, and I'll give some proceeds of my sales to St. Jude. And there are a lot of sponsors that are going to be coming over and hopefully give some money for the research. And basically, I'm asking for, I'm kind of nervous, I'm not used to talk like this. Basically, I'm asking for closing down Wall Street, and I will unroll, it's a one-way street, as you see. Maybe I will need the help of like a traffic controller, maybe at the entrance of Main Street. As you see, I put a sign there, like to direct to Cameron Street and to Middle Lane Street to have access to the back parking lot. But basically, it's really, I know it's a challenge for me to obtain this closing of the street to have an activity which is called like a bocce ball, There'll be a field for children. I have plastic balls, field of water, which are harmless, and there'll be 2 fields for real bocce. But it's really to raise awareness for St. Jude. And it's a private event, it's on invitation. There will be at any given time on the 3 fields, 6 people on each field. So it's going to be 12, and it's 18 people at the max. And I will probably invite 20 teams. So basically, if I could have the access and roll, actually I have a sample of what it is. To have the street closed from 12 noon to 6 p.m. And this fabric is, as you see, is 12. I took some of the measurements. The street is 15 wide, and this field is 12 feet. So it will not obstruct the sidewalk in any way.
What day is the 14th?
It's a Saturday.
Saturday.
Okay, so, and just for the day?
It's 12 noon to 6 p.m.
I think we need to talk about it. I remember last year you were thinking of doing the same thing, but in the back of the parking lot.
Yeah, it was a bad idea because the parking spots are
Is prime.
Yes. So I thought about the street because you still have access from both sides to the parking lot.
Now, I don't believe there's any entrances to any of the restaurants on the side there?
No, it's only access to my office and my apartment on 7 Wall Street, which is in the middle of the block.
Okay.
And across you have St. Ambrose. We have the side door where you go into the cafe, but the sidewalks are not obstructed.
Yeah, I'm not worried about pedestrian traffic being interfered with. It's vehicular traffic and emergency vehicular traffic with the apartments down there on Wall Street. So that's the only thing I think we'd have to discuss with the police and our first responders, the fire. I mean, again, great idea. So it's hard to say there might be an issue with that based on how great of an idea and the organization supporting. However, you're talking in the height of our summer season, as you're aware of, and that could be a logistical nightmare. That's just my first thought on it. On a Saturday, too, no less.
We had a conversation in advance with Chief Cummings, and he can fill us in, but I think, Chief Cummings, you felt that we were covered because there are other entrances. Okay.
Yeah, I think we'll be all right.
Okay.
Police department, this one.
Okay.
And there would need to be some type of barricade and probably a TCO, so people who are accustomed.
But we get the feedback from the fire and the ambulance that they have to get a vehicle down.
Good point. Just one question. It's a private event, so your guests come and observe the bocce games, is what you're saying?
Right. So they're going to come in the back patio inside the restaurant, and it's going to there'll be the people, the sponsors, and I will say, you the 3 of you play against, out of the hat, and they go out on the field, they play, then we come back in the back patio. And they might eat, they might drink. There'll be no alcohol beverages whatsoever on the street, so that I make it clear. And so we go back inside, and the teams go back and forth. After they lose or they win, they are eliminated. And I'm going to invite not only restaurant customers of mine that are regulars, if they want to participate. So that's basically it.
And passersby would be able to stand on your turf, or they would just watch from the...
I'm sure that because you have to control my crowd, so that it's not an issue for the police department or anybody else. But since the sidewalks are busy, people leave, park in the back, I'm sure that people are going to be very curious. I think it could be, again, we're going to have like big things like this. I'm going to have it at the entrance of the restaurant and say that I'm raising money and give proceeds to St. Jude. And that's really the idea. And some people are going to be maybe having coffee, at St. Ambrose or lunch, and people are going to walk on Main Street. They're going to see the sign of St. Jude, and that's to raise awareness, really. And the fact of closing the street, if the police department doesn't see any problem, or the fire department, of course, in case of an emergency, if we hear sirens, you can roll over that grass, it's not going to obstruct people. It's like, when we pull over, when the police come or the fire department, I don't think I will be too much of a burden there.
No, it's good, and it goes to absolutely great cause, so. I think probably this board just wants to digest it a bit and take a look at the site. And it's good you started early this year, because last year, I think, as I remember, it was on the 12th all of a sudden.
Yes, maybe I should have started 1 month earlier. Sorry.
No, I think you're good. So, is there any further questions, or? Okay.
Pretty clear.
I think you'd have to sign the liability one.
Right, yes, yeah. You'd have to do all the
So if you were to favor this event, raise awareness for the children, maybe you can tell me what the bond requirements are and whatever you need.
Yeah, there's a regular form.
Yep, that's good insurance, no problem.
Yeah. Good. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for your continued interest.
Can I just ask one thing? I'm sorry, Mayor. Is there anything, Alfie, on here? FD?
Yeah, I didn't add him, but he's going to be on right after Gary.
Okay.
Guess that's your cue there, Gary.
Glad you're all in such a great mood tonight.
Are you going to keep it that way?
That's all I got. I'm back to ask for equipment. Previously, I came before you to ask for 2 pieces of equipment for the Parks Department. Tonight, I'm coming back to ask you again for a backhoe that was tabled at the time because you wanted to know the value of a trade-in, as well as we're looking for a payloader for the Highway Department. Earlier today, I emailed you some things on it. I don't know if they're in your books. But I'm basically coming tonight, I'm looking to replace our 1995 CAT payloader with a new Hitachi payloader. Essentially, we have gone and looked at 4 different units, and it just so happens the lower one at this time is the one the supervisor would like to purchase, and that's a Hitachi ZW180-6. Basically, would be just a standard payloader with a 4-in-1 bucket and forks, and that's under a Town of Huntington contract for $173,300. We did demo 3 others, and this one just sort of won out. There was a little bit of a tie between this and another CAT payloader, but the Hitachi edged it out. And we've talked to East Hampton Town as well as some other municipalities who say the company is good, stands behind their product, and provides good service.
Is this the one you brought up last time, or is this?
No, the back's on.
Actually, I'm speaking to the highway payloader first.
Which is the orange Hitachi, right?
Yes.
Default orange.
And you didn't like the CAT?
We like the CAT. We like the CAT as well. The Hitachi seemed to go a little bit better on the beach. It was a preference by a couple of our operators. Additionally, it doesn't have a particulate filter on it, so that's a little savings too. But we definitely did like the CAT, and when we approached CAT about any kind of a deal, but if buying two instead of one machine, there was no break. So we essentially went back to, what the highway department wants and asks for, and then, of course, on paperwork, it's just slightly less, so that wasn't a hard decision for me.
So I'm confused.
Yes.
Do you want two? You want the CAT and the Hitachi, or just one?
No, as far as payloaders go, we're looking for the Hitachi payloader alone,
Okay.
and then the second piece is for the Parks Department, we
And
can talk
what is
about.
that?
That's what I came to you last time, and that's a backhoe for the Parks Department. It's a small unit.
That's the one.
that's
That's
the-
what I was,
yes.
I was confused with it.
So it's all two different, I'm sorry?
And the maker of the backhoe?
The backhoe, the one we would like to get that is a CAT. It's
Good.
made by
Trump will send you a gold star tomorrow.
oh, yes?
American company.
Okay.
Gary, quick question for those of us who don't operate a payloader every day. How is this utilized in your...
You should try.
I've asked Gary to take me out, and
Grab the controls and go.
Our payloaders, we have two payloaders currently, and we try to maintain. They're everyday machines. We use them on the beach. We use them for loading materials back and forth. We use them for plowing with snow in parking lots. Today, Steve called me, and we used one to go down to the beach and bury a shark that washed ashore.
okay.
So they're really an all-purpose for material moving, for dirt, fill, sand, gravel,
Leaves.
et cetera. Leaves.
Leaves.
And,
Big use in full.
I'm sorry?
A big use in full.
Quite. And on the note I just showed you, our old unit that's a 95, it's just getting sort of tired out, was a 96. We're up to looking at a 168 horsepower, which would match what our other Volvo payloader is that we have.
What year is the Volvo?
I believe the Volvo is 2010. I'm not sure exactly.
So one is almost 23 years old, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And how long do they last typically, if you know the answer?
Well, in a municipality, basically you get 10 to 15 years, but we've refurbished this unit twice. And we're just to the point of it's getting very expensive to keep that old machine running. As well as we're actually buying larger trucks, so we need larger buckets to fill them, taller machines to fill them, et cetera, just for efficiency of trying to do the job.
These were the ones that moved all the snow on Main Street, is that
Picked
right?
them up.
Oh.
A lot of those
Yes.
were contracted.
But some ours, yes, we had some of ours and some private. But a lot of them were ours. And most of the time it was ours.
Correct. Any of the snow that gets plowed off to the side, these are the machines that you're mostly seeing loading trucks.
And the older ones, do they have those emergency ringers when you're backing up onto?
Yes.
Okay. But they're not as, they do? The 95 model has that? Okay.
They all have to.
Okay.
Yeah, the newer ones have them too, and they come with that standard beeping noise that annoys people, and there's alternate ones you can get, but they're all loud. They all have an attention-getting annoyance to them, I should say.
That's how we can tell you're working.
Yes, good. Neighbors too.
The neighbors, yeah.
But anyway, the one machine really is tired. Like I say, it's used 5 days a week. So it's not something that's going to be sitting in the yard waiting for a job. It's always used.
So the Band-Aid's being applied through the years by Kenny and this crew, it's done as much as we can.
Yeah, they've actually done very well, but, now every repair is over $1,000 to
Right, so eventually it becomes not cost-effective to keep.
Exactly.
You use two at the same time often or infrequently?
Yes.
Okay.
You pretty much have 4 to 5 HEOs on the job at a time. We have plenty of equipment they can do, but we have operators so we keep 2 running almost all the time.
How big was the shark?
I actually didn't get that detail. Steve reported it to me. I handed it off to the highway and was just told that they found it and then they buried it. So details to follow.
The large trees, the trees and stumps after storms too, that's what you move. 25-footer.
Thank you.
Yeah, these machines also, you just mentioned trees, they'll have 4-in-1 buckets, which will be a jaw So during hurricanes and stuff, we can pick up tree trunks and other things, load them, and push them out of the way. So just another job. Okay.
Every season needs to get used.
Maybe we can go on, Gary, to the backhoe.
All right, the backhoe, which, like I said, we brought up last time, we're replacing a 1998 New Holland backhoe. That machine is pretty tired. It's very sloppy in the controls. The bucket wiggles pretty well. Again, Kenny's been trying to keep that thing going for quite a while. What we're looking at for that one is a CAT. We did like that unit. The CAT came in at 125,855. That's NJPA, so again, we don't have to go out to bid for it. We could just buy it from HO Penn. And we've had a relationship with HO Penn for a lot of years, so we know what they're about. We tried a case and a John Deere. Just didn't, I guess there were little oddball things about the operators just not liking them as much. One was a little bit big. I guess the guys just sort of felt that this was the machine they preferred out of the three. Again, the other machine has been around for a very long time. This machine is used by the Parks Department, excavation, grading, et cetera, in the parks, planting trees, used year-round on a daily basis.
Okay.
Just to talk trade-ins too, I didn't mention that, I know the last time I didn't have the exact figures, but the backhoe, they offered a trade-in of $5,500, and the payloader, they offered a trade-in of $12,000, and we think we can get a great deal more than that for them. So we'd like to put a number on them and put them outside our yard, see if we can get a little bit.
And where would you put the numbers at, do you know?
I do know, I'd rather not say.
Gotcha.
Okay, I'll go along with that.
I can tell you later.
But will you let us know later?
Sure.
I mean, what you've got stated here is a minimal number, obviously, and you feel private, and you can hear or more. Gotcha. Okay.
I mean, there is an advantage of trading it in, is we get rid of it right away, and we don't have another machine kicking around in the yard.
It's true. If we sold them at these numbers, I think we could sell each one of them in a day. But we would like to ask upwards from those numbers, so if they have to sit out there for a week or so, I think we can handle that.
Okay.
If it doesn't matter to the board, then I would just trade them in and we'd be done with them. But I think we could get a little more for that.
From a budget standpoint, Steve, is this a squeeze, or do we actually set aside money thinking that all of our equipment has an economic useful life and we have to?
Well, we have money in capital reserve, but we also have other requirements based on the timing of how those go through. You have the Pierce Concert House, your police vehicles, you have the ambulance radios.
So we prioritize as we go through based on the need, the wear and tear.
These units were placed in the budgets of each department when we put the budget forward back in March.
They were?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
They were in the budget. They were put in the budget for each department this year.
Okay.
So we passed the budget, so.
Okay.
Well, that's the operating budget. That's two different.
You're right.
Correct.
Right. But as Brian, right, it says it's not coming out of left field usually.
Coming out of capital
compared to
reserve.
their budget.
Right.
When we do our budgets for you, we have our operating budget, but on that same budget, we submit our equipment needs and the costs there.
And so we projected this in our operating budget.
No, the operating budget is from the general fund. This is a cap reserve requirement.
It's a different budget.
It's a different,
We'll talk about it.
that's reserve funds.
Okay.
that-
We need to talk about this.
Okay.
It's just that when we're putting all our costs together, we include it in a separate area, just so we're giving everything at once.
Okay.
Right, also the backhoe, there are units in stock that we could get right away, and then it would be about 6 to 12 weeks for the payloader.
Okay. Do they have any demo units, or?
I did not ask for a demo unit.
Okay. You might want to check on that. I mean, a lot of times they have them in the yards if they stock the equipment.
We did not inquire about that.
Okay. They're just cheaper.
And immediately available.
Yeah, I know the ones they let us test drive were not demo units per se. They took them out of their rental fleet. And each one had, 1,000 hours on it per se. But I do not know what they have for demos.
Okay. Any of you feel comfortable in voting on any of these, or you?
You want to talk about it after, or should we do it now? That's the question.
Why
That
don't
is the question.
Why don't we digest it and talk about it? Yeah.
We can talk about it in executive.
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to get those prices too. Thank you, Gary.
Thanks, Gary.
Thanks, Gary.
We'll just have to add Alfie in for third presentation.
Yeah.
So I'm actually here tonight looking for the village's blessing on the sale of a piece of apparatus. Our current unit 7316, one of our 2 ladder trucks, is a 134-foot Bronto in 1996. There's 2 of these that have been on Long Island for a period of time. The concern for a long period of time was once we get rid of this piece of apparatus, we're going to have a hard time trying to sell it. The second one on the island was sold to a department in Chile about 2 months ago. And it's making its way down there, so there seems to be a demand for this style truck. So the original concern was the kind of price we'd get for it if we traded in, if not having to donate it. We did have a broker come out and look at the truck. It is the same gentleman who sold our 3 most recent pumpers that we were able to get rid of for pretty decent prices. So he came up, he took a look at the truck, took some photos. He wants to list the vehicle for $98,000 and hoped that one of the departments down there is going to see the Wading River fire apparatus and want something similar. There's not much demand for it in the United States anymore because of the style truck and the applications for it. So the fact that they're kind of going out right now is promising for us. So what we're coming for tonight was basically the village's blessing and sign off on the authorization for this gentleman, John Gibbons, to list the vehicle. He does anticipate it being several months before that piece of apparatus goes down there and they're able to see it and maybe want another one. So it doesn't look like it's going to be an immediate sale, but as long as we can get the listing up and start getting the truck out there for departments to see it. Since he did sell the 3-piece of apparatus, he has branched out onto his own, so he has his own company now, so he pretty much does all the work himself. He's the one that's coming out, doing the photos, staying in touch personally, so we've developed quite a good reputation and relationship with him.
Where is he from?
He's actually, he has an office in Garden City, but he really does traveling. He'll travel anywhere around the country that departments have these kinds of apparatus, all the way down to the Tahoes and fly cars, the first responder vehicles. So he doesn't really operate out of just one area.
And just tell me again, what piece of equipment is this?
It's 7316. I have just a copy of the sales authorization we're looking for sign on the backside.
The ladder truck. It's
It's
one of the ladder trucks, Nancy.
If you wanted to see a picture on the backside.
Alfie, what year did that go into?
We purchased this vehicle in 96. I want to say 96. This was a demo unit that was traveling the country at the time. We were offered basically a half price for it at the time if we purchased it as a demo, so it has quite a bit of miles on it. That was one of the concerns with listing it at this point. The Wading River apparatus that just sold had probably about half the amount of miles on it. The difference being this truck is 2 years newer than that one is, and the ladder itself is about 30 feet longer. So
this is
on this one? Or?
Yeah, this one compared to the one that just sold. So the hope is that a department down there will see that truck and want to get something similar, if not bigger. And as I said, this is 2 years newer for it.
Do we have a replacement for this?
We're working on that right now. We have a
The
committee
second part
together.
of this.
I'm not ready tonight
If you're
to,
getting rid of a truck, that means you're going to have a new one. Is that true?
it's in the works. We don't have the information to present to you tonight with a potential replacement. The idea was, while we're working on that, we don't want to end up with 3 trucks here if we can't get rid of this one in time for the idea of purchasing a new one.
Maybe you should ask us if we're going to approve this new truck before you sell the other one.
Well, that's,
Not to
is a
give you a
fair-
hard time, but
that is
I like your style, though.
That is a
You're
very
telling us
fair,
you're selling something that you might be able to get $98,000 for, but you haven't told us you need a new truck that might cost hundreds of thousands.
Well, we've had, if I can answer, I help 32 out here. We've had, the mayor and I have had, actually, and Steve, discussions with the district commissioners. There have been some discussion. There has been a game plan for replacing of apparatus, aging apparatus, and this has been one that's been discussed for some time, actually, and put off until we took care of some other apparatus in the past few years. So this is the one that's on the hit list now. In the preliminary stages of it, mind you, so that's where we're meeting on that and talking numbers, and they're researching which apparatus they want to go with. While that happens, and I presented the exact same thing to him and all the chiefs. I go, okay, why don't you wait to see? But the thing is usually when we get rid of any piece of equipment in the village, not just the fire department, but usually the fire department, there's a couple ways we get rid of it. We either sell it or we donate it. And we've donated many pieces.
I know we have.
So, but this, as Chief Gallivan pointed out, this particular one has a lot of what we're looking to replace it with is what we find out here. This is a long ladder truck, and it has trouble getting into these driveways and the flag lots and all these estates with the long, windy roads outside of the village.
Well, why would the new one be any different?
It'll be smaller. The new one we're looking at will be smaller and shorter. So there's not a huge market for it around here, but again, this broker has discovered a market for it in South America. So again, all it does is we're authorizing him to go out and authorize this broker to perhaps find a buyer, maybe not. We're not authorizing it to go. In the meantime, it happens while we're still looking at the other new apparatus.
Al?
yes.
Are you saying that, have you purchased or do you expect to purchase the new vehicle before you found out whether or not this one has any sale value? Or do you wait until you've got a buyer for the current vehicle and then go ahead?
Well, with the production on the vehicles, if we wanted to purchase tonight for a new ladder truck, you're looking at least 1 year to 14 months production time and even another couple months design time. This truck, just as far as our operations go, we do have a second ladder truck that we actually find a little bit more useful for our operations. This vehicle, we're having a lot of trouble keeping going. Just this morning, actually, we had some trouble with it doing a flag arch at a funeral detail. So we're trying to, basically, we're okay operationally going down one vehicle for the time being able to supplement that with a mutual aid department's ladder in the time it takes to find something that's going to work better for the department, for the village, and really the area that we're in now.
This is the ladder that went down in the Sag Harbor fire, right?
Yes.
And it's a key part, too, is that, I asked as well, okay, are you shortchanging the department with the needs of the department and the firefighters by being down a vehicle, so to speak, if it should be sold prior to a new one, again, in that scenario, if it happened. And again, they said that they'd be, since it has issues, that they're using the other one more anyways, and that with a mutual aid, we could always bring in the ladder from another department.
What
So that
happened
covers it.
with it in the Sag Harbor fire?
Remember the big Sag Harbor fire, the movie
Yes.
theater?
Right.
This particular, the one he's talking about, Aloni, it jammed, they couldn't retract it, or they
It's
couldn't?
It's completely analog. It's an older style safety system on it, and the safety sensors on the actual bucket at the top iced over. And once they iced over, they stopped functioning, which stops the operation of the truck.
So we had the mechanic actually climbing up the ladder and fixing it. It was quite,
It does go 134 feet up, so
yeah, that was,
God bless the guys who do that.
yeah.
The new equipment is pretty impressive.
Oh, I'm sure.
One of and to support him a little bit, one of the big things is that a lot of the houses have changed in their architecture here. In the village, we have narrow driveways, we have tall hedges, And these
Gates,
bigger...
everybody's got gates.
Everybody has gates, and these bigger trucks...
Can't get through them.
Although, you know, that is Julie's favorite truck.
Well, it's a good thing.
Biggest billboard we have.
It's, yes.
Those bigger trucks are really difficult to get into a fire. And the newer truck they're looking at is a multi-use, you referred to it as?
Yeah,
because it's got the ability to operate as a pumper and a first responding vehicle, which the older designs don't have any of those capabilities.
It's just a ladder.
It's just a ladder, and they're much, much larger.
And the thing to note about this vehicle too, this does not have a pump on it. So especially during the daytime when we have some limited manpower, in order to flow water through this truck, you actually need a full crew on this vehicle and a pumper to respond with it, dedicated just as the pump for it. So we have some issues getting it out, especially during the day when we do have limited manpower. And again, as we mentioned, the size of the vehicle is probably one of the most important things we're looking at now. As some of the other trucks get bigger, just with new technology, we want to make sure that we can get into some of the properties that we do encounter in the village. So.
I mean, really where we're at is we're in, again, preliminary stages of looking for new apparatus. This just presented itself with this broker because we really didn't think there would be a market for this. By going outside of the states, there may be. So that's really why the chief is up here asking for this now. This really just presented itself fortuitously. It wasn't really in the game plan. So that's why it seems like it's happening before, as you've pointed out, but that's the reason why, because...
Well, logistically, there's other reasons. You don't want 3 of these things in the village because you can't house them, and it's difficult. So the logical idea is to sell one. You can operate with one for the time being until you get a new one ordered.
Yeah. And our fallback was always going to be, if we couldn't sell it, a donation. These trucks are used widely in Canada. So a lot of the
There's no snow or ice problems.
Well, these vehicles are really meant for more of a height than a reach. So a lot of the city departments use these. But the problem with the donation even going in there is they just passed their new emissions laws. And any of these vehicles over 20 years old actually can't go up to Canada anymore. So even the donation might have ended up getting difficult. So when this offer got presented to us, the chief spoke. We spoke to the officers at one of our councils and the hook and ladder company, more importantly, uses the vehicles. If we could function with the one ladder truck, we have 2 ladders on either end of the district between our mutual aid departments. So for the time being and for how long it takes to find a replacement, we can supplement our operations with neighboring departments.
Well, if everybody is okay with it, I'd like to make a motion to approve the chief to go out and at least authorize this broker to put it out for bid anyways and see what interest we got.
I'll second that.
In favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
There you go. The new one's going to be a lot harder.
I'm going to have some backup for that.
That was your try run.
That was. It wasn't bad. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief.
Have a great day.
Thanks, Chief.
I don't think we have any more presentations, so we move to public hearings. And I'll make a motion to open the public hearing on the deer fence law.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any comments, Counselor?
This proposed law has been suggested by the building department. It follows a previous law considered by the village board, prior village board, I think dating back to 2012. I believe the board at that time had a law that had provisions. It would require review by the Architectural Review Board, and there were certain standards. The primary standards here would be to allow in all your residential districts the building inspector to authorize a fence up to 8 feet, commonly as we define in here, a deer fence, to try to protect plants and other things on residential properties. The fence would only be allowed where there's adequate screening of the same height as the fence, and there's some other standards that go along with that. This is on for your first time. You did receive a letter from the Suffolk County Planning Commission indicating a matter of local jurisdiction. You have not, to my knowledge, received any report from the Village Planning Commission. It was referred to them for their comments. My suggestion would be to keep it open, at the very least, to hear their comments. A couple questions I know have been raised by board members, particular as to how this might apply on the few agricultural parcels that we have. And frankly, I don't think it was thought of back when this was first drafted. And so I have some suggestions as to how to deal with that. The issue there is that on some of your preserved agricultural parcels, one of the criteria was to preserve at least the vista of open farmland along public streets. So this law would be somewhat contrary in that you require it all to be screened. So we might have a provision or exception as to, clearly fences in that case to preserve agricultural production are necessary nowadays, but on the other hand, you may have a provision where you wouldn't require the screening, at least from the public street standpoint. So that's something that has been discussed, and I can suggest some language as to that. But I think we're here to hear any comments on this at this time, and then any further discussion. My recommendation would be keep it open until you get the Planning Commission, Village Planning Commission report, and any other considerations as you hear tonight. There's also been discussion about this applies in only your residential zones, not your commercial districts. And there's been some questions raised as to where in our residential districts, based on lot size, perhaps might be an issue. There's been, and that might be a consideration the board might want to think about. Other than that, again, it's something that has been out there. The whole case of deer fences clearly is an aesthetic issue. There's also the concern about how it may impact wildlife, the deer itself, but we're primarily in an area where you have hedging already. I think that's what you're trying to achieve in those districts. So.
Any comments from the public?
Careful now.
Your chance.
Stood up soon, attempt number 2.
Thank you for waiting.
Good evening, board members. My name is Katerina Grinko from a law firm, Toomey Latham, 51 Hill Street, Southampton. I'm here on behalf of the Whitefield condominium residents, appearing actually in support of the proposed local law. The Whitefield condominium residents very happy about the proposed local law. As you know, the property is 16 acre in size, and there are approximately 29 homes on that lot or property at 155 Hill Street. And over years, the condominium owners found it more and more difficult to protect their property from the increasing deer population, even though the property is already surrounded with 6-foot fencing and heavy and thick hedging. It's still, deer are able to easily jump over, and unfortunately causes both nuisances and safety concerns. The Whitefield residents strongly believe that the 8-foot fencing will benefit not only their condominium residents, but also the entire village community. And the main points are that the increased population of deer causes struggle to local property owners to protect their landscaping, vegetation, and plantings. They also create dangerous driving situations by darting in front of vehicles and causing accidents. And most importantly, the spread of tick-borne disease is particularly important and of concern to the property owners with children and grandchildren. The residents of the Whitefield condominium believe that it's the way local law is drafted is also good from the aesthetic standpoint, because the requirement or the permission to file a building permit for the fence is coupled with the requirement to plant hedges and screening on the exterior of the fence, which will make fencing aesthetically appealing or maybe not even visible. And another point is that it's beneficial to have a system in place versus, have a system in place to have an ability to file a building permit versus just seeing some property owners installing the fence without screening and without the proper permit. We strongly feel that the requirements in the proposed local are very reasonable, and the Whitefield condominium board expressed that they would be very happy to comply with the requirements if they are to decide to increase the height of their fence. So on behalf of the Whitefield condominium owners, we would like to thank the board for the opportunity to submit these comments, and also respectfully request that the board enact this law. And I also have just a quick note to read in from one of the property owners also of the condominium. Her name is Marjorie Hyman, and she's owner of Unit 18. She just asked me to read a couple of sentences, with your permission. She writes, "I have watched the destruction the deer have caused the Whitefield condominium complex over many years. Among the many benefits that inspired me to buy my unit at Whitefield was the beauty and gracious quality of the landscaping, the historic rose garden, the specimen trees and plantings, and the magnificent alley of irreplaceable topiaries that give such distinction to the north side of the grounds. Additionally, we have all designed our personal areas with plantings only to see them, in quotes, here today and gone tomorrow. Due to the increase in the deer population, and though no labor or expense has been spared, much of these valuable assets have been totally destroyed or severely damaged. Therefore, we need that 8-foot fence to protect the value of our property, both aesthetically and monetarily, so that not only we at Whitefield, but other Southampton residents can enjoy the loveliness of our homes." That's it. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. If I could just say a couple of things. One, this deer fence issue has been before us for quite a few times and over the years, and quite frankly, I have some really mixed emotions over a deer fence. Although I got to tell you, when my wife yells at me because the deer came up in the back porch and ate all our pansies, I kind of wonder I'd like to have a big fence. But I think that a lot of these fences, we don't realize it because we live in a pretty much suburban lifestyle, but there are other wildlife besides deer. And a lot of these wildlife, including the deer, have migratory patterns that are tremendous distances, but they may move from a wooded area into more open lots as the seasons change. And when we put these fences up, we not only restrict the deer movements, we restrict the movements of other wildlife. And in my feeling, there's other ways to control the deer population through proper culling practices, as opposed to everybody putting up a stockade fence that looks like a stellage around every house. And if you ever want to see what they look like, I suggest you go over the North Fork, because a lot of those agricultural areas over there have these fences, and it really does change the landscape. And while we're looking to hide them in the hedge, you can hide them all you want, but you're still restricting the ability of a lot of wildlife to move through that area. So often I've seen driving down the road, a deer will run out in front of you, and it starts for the hedge. You can't get through the hedge, so it darts, and then it's running down the side of the road next to you in absolute panic because it can't find anywhere to go. And I just, I'm not sure that's the way to resolve the issue that we have.
Well, my feeling on it is that I would say for the last maybe 8 years, we have had people coming to us asking us to do something about the deer. We've had meetings where people have come where they want to control shooting of the deer. They were going to go out and kill them with bow and arrows. We never did any of it, and they continued to multiply. And now we have herds of them that sometimes run down streets. I've seen them in my neighborhood. So I think people have asked for higher fences for a long period of time. I feel it's the least we can do for the moment.
If you're through. No, in Section C here does say that the building inspector may condition a permit for a deer fence on the installation of hedging or other plantings to conceal the fencing and it diminishes its visual impact on the street and so on. So it would seem to me that that would be a very strong part of this, that you make that, a necessary condition, that you're not just having fences out there that look, like the Dickens. But if they do that, and then they become virtually invisible.
Well, the visibleness of the fence is only one aspect of it. The fence is serving its purpose, and it's keeping the deer out, but it's also keeping other wildlife out.
Like what?
Anything from, you can say possums to raccoons to foxes, and they're moving through the area. We don't see them because, we're...
But you're
Well, I'm
talking about
fenced and I
residential.
see them.
You're talking about residences, and do we want foxes?
But I'm fenced and I see them coming through anyway. I mean, I have a field behind my house. They managed to get over my fencing. And I've seen baby possum in my yard. I've seen raccoons in my yard. I've seen fox running through the neighborhood, so I don't know.
Well, I don't know what the answer is either, so... Any other
I just think if
comments?
the visibility issue was properly dealt with, that deer are really, the sad part of it, a lot of the wildlife that we used to see, I used to see pheasants all over this village and things like that, and I haven't seen one in so darn long. And
Well, there could be a reason for that. And,
I'm sure there is a reason.
And the impact of
Well, it is.
the impact of the fences could have the same effect. So, I just think that it's something that we need to go into cautiously.
It just dawned on me, Nancy, when you said that's the least we could do. It did make sense. And then I'm wondering if we if we allow everybody to have these fences and hedges, the deer now have really nowhere to go. So where would they spend most of their time? Perhaps this is just thinking out loud. Are they going to be on a road creating more dangerous driving? I don't know.
Well, I mean, I'll give you an example. In my house, I have hedging in the front of my house that obviously is taller than 8 feet. It's quite high. So, and yet I had a buck in my yard 2 Thanksgivings ago that just went right over the fence, ran down the side of my road, my side yard, and just jumped right over that 8-foot hedge. So it had no problem in my yard. So they find a way, and not everybody will do this. I mean, I have, as I said, I have a big field behind me, and there are neighbors who would never put up a fence. So, they come through their yard, and then they come around my yard thinking they're going to get through, and some of them jump the fence, and some of them...
It's also expensive. I mean, adequate screening, it costs a lot of money to put up hedges and arborvitae
Well, I think part of the argument
enforcing
is that some people that are discussed have. And actually, man, that's an interesting point of other element. I never really figured it that way. But if they could jump a 6-foot fence, I guess they can do an 8-foot. I don't know. That's a good, interesting point, but the people that approached me about it already have a hedge. So I think I think the safety mechanism here is that if somebody's going to install a brand new one and does not already have a hedge, then this provides for that. I think what we have is a lot of people who have the hedges, they're already abiding by the law by having a 6-foot in it, and it's just not effective, so give the extra 2 feet within that hedge is really where I think a lot of it is. And as Nancy McGann and Bill pointed out, it has been asked for a while, so what it's the least we could do, but I mean, it's the least invasive, at least cost, well, it's, I think, something to do. The culling and the other things always bring up, shooting, whatever, hunting, always bring up so many other factors and issues that it just delays something happening.
I understand everything that you're saying. It's from an environmental point of view, and what you're saying basically is that we're closing them out, and we're basically, we're not allowing them the habitat that they have had in the past. But look at all the building that's taken place. It's pushed them to other areas. I mean, I know there was a fox den on North Main Street across from the Aquino House. That's gone now because that's being built on. The field behind my house is like a petting zoo out there. I mean, they're out there laying in the sun. They're all over the place. So but that's
fundraiser.
That's, and I know there were other animals back there. So there are spots, but I don't know what to say in a residential. Most people don't want those animals on their property.
Yeah. And most of those animals don't want people on their property.
That's true. That's absolutely true.
So, was there any comments from the public? Yes, please.
Well, thank you. First of all, I think it's Eric Winkler, 37 John Street. Courage, I applaud you that you are addressing the issue, although I agree this is only a piece of the whole thing, and encourage you to do more. I think it's a step in the right direction. Few things, though. I mean, 8 foot is great, but most deer actually can't jump over it. But that's a different issue. As I read this, I don't totally understand why you separate between a deer fence and a regular fence. And I think I understand the issues of the aesthetics, and regular deer fence is pretty unattractive. But requiring 8 foot of privet or other growth in front of it, I think, is really too burdensome, too expensive, and also too restrictive. I think if, there can be attractive fencing if it is open and can see through. I prefer not to have a fence at all. And so far I've resisted, but just as I came to the meeting, I was on John Street in the middle of the village. A deer was grazing in my front lawn at 5:30. And so far, I continue to spend, hundreds of dollars every year to keep them out. They come in once and the whole season is kaput. And so many people have given up. And it used to be nice to walk through the village and see into the gardens. Now you either see nothing or you see privet hedge. I think you have to think about that too, about the aesthetics and the openness of the village or the gardens, and do something about that. So I really would encourage you to consider not separate deer fencing from regular fencing. Maybe in terms of the height, but not in terms of the material that's being used. Reading through it, it's also not clear what you have in mind for the gates. I mean, if, as I understand it, a gate should not be more than 10 feet wide, although it doesn't say whether it should be the same material as the deer fencing, which would be really atrocious, or whether it can be a regular gate. I clearly it is a financial burden. I think it's, if somebody, if there's an application fee for a regular fence and then an additional application for a deer fence and another fee for a gate, for example, I think it adds up, and I think that might need to be thought through a little bit more. But finally, I hear you about the outdoor wildlife in my garden. I used to have squirrels, and then cats came, and I love the birds. And now we have possums, raccoons, rabbits. Until 5 years ago, I've been here for 25 years. Until 5 years ago, we had no deer at all, none. We didn't even have rabbits, and now we're just, inundated with them. So if the issue is that we keep them out of other areas, we've got to do something about the other areas. Yes, I mean, there are 10, 12-foot hedges in the town outside of the village. Maybe that's why they are here, but I don't think anybody knows how many more deer there are than there were 10 years ago or 20 years ago. Keeping out other animals, wildlife, yes, but a 4-foot fence will keep those animals out as well. I mean, I don't think a possum will jump or a turkey will jump and so forth. So I don't think the height is an issue in terms of impacting where they are. We do have too many. They are not healthy. They're a risk factor. I mean, I appreciate that you are concerned about traffic and risk factors by a fence. The same issue is there with a privet fence. Deer are an issue in terms of accidents that they are causing and jumping on people or surprising them and then you run away. Certainly, we know about tick disease, although they're not the only thing that's spread. So I support this. I think it can be improved, some of the comments I made. And I certainly encourage you to do more to cull and reduce the population that we already have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, I can't shut up. You're here for something else. You're here for something else. Yeah, but I'm here for this too.
They're not coming in beach buggies.
They could be.
It could be.
Good evening. My name is Francis Adamczewski, 40 West Prospect Street. I'll be 57 this year, and I've lived here all my life. Growing up, there was farm fields behind my house, wooded areas. Now all these wooded areas and farm fields have mansions on them, houses. The deer have nowhere to go. What are we going to do? Are we going to eradicate the deer? Is that a reason? Is this what we really want? I mean, I have had Lyme disease. I could take my shirt off and show you tick bites that I pulled off myself the other day. So it's a hard place to. What are we going to do with them? What can we do with them? If everybody puts up 8-foot fences, it's like we're all enclosed. I mean, they're wildlife. Are we going to make the deer extinct on Long Island because they're eating our shrubbery and our vegetables? Because I hate when they eat my garden. But it's tough. We're in a tough situation with the deer. Everybody says the deer population has exploded, but do we realize that how many deer were here before? We don't know. They were all in the woods and hiding, eating acorns in the woods, and didn't have to come out to our gardens and eat our shrubs in our gardens because they had plenty of acorns to eat and woods to hang out in, so we wouldn't have to see. But now Long Island has been built up. Pretty much every piece of property has been pretty much sold and a house is on it. So I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. I don't know whether to put, I don't want them in my yard either, but they come in my yard too. I mean, I see them every day. I don't know what to say. Really don't know what to say because the deer were here first, I guess, or whatever, but they're wildlife. What are we going to do? Make them extinct? I don't know.
I don't think that would ever happen. I mean, we had
Well,
talked
it's
about.
going to happen.
thinning the
If everybody
thinning the
puts up an
herbs.
8-foot fence, they have no place to go. They'll be all on the road, like hanging out on the road. And then what's going to happen?
But I don't
There's
think
nothing for
everybody
them to
will
eat.
put up an 8-foot fence. That's what I'm saying. I think not everybody will put up an 8-foot fence. I mean, am I?
I think a lot of people will, which will focus them to other areas where people can't afford to put these fences up. And is that fair to them?
So you're saying it's just corralling them to a different
Yeah,
direction?
exactly. So you got people that can afford the fence and people that can't afford the fence. So if everybody that can afford the fence puts their fences up, that's going to zone them into one tight area. So I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I really don't.
Well, this is one proposal.
Yeah, it is, but
The other
like,
issue is that they don't have any predators except as you.
well, that's the thing. Years ago, you used to be able to hunt them in the farms and the fields out here. And now hunting is being,
yes.
I mean, I know people don't like people shooting deer, but deer are very good to eat, believe it or not. I'd rather eat a deer than eat a cow. But that's me. So I don't know what to say. I don't know what you're going to do. It's up to you. You're the board. You're the mayor. You're going to decide. But that's my opinion.
Oh, thank you.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but that's my opinion. You know, if like I said, if everybody starts to put these fences up, you know, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. I mean, they're wildlife. They belong in the woods, but there's no more woods for them to really.
That's the problem.
So if you got a big yard, they're going to tend to go to the bigger yards because there's more area, less people to see them or hide from them. But nowadays, the deer come right up to you anyway. What do you got? All right, thank you. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Frank.
Any other comments from anybody? On the board?
Safe enough.
With that, I think that... Okay, sure.
David Iorio. I would be curious to understand, you mentioned the North Fork has these fences. It seems that this is a problem that's just getting pushed around. So if every house in the village put up an 8-foot fence, the deer would eventually leave. They might go west, they might go east, they might go north. But somebody mentioned earlier that this is, in the past 5 years, that it's really grown. What has changed in the last 5 years? Did Bridgehampton change a law, and now there are tall fences in Bridgehampton? Are they just coming from somewhere else? So how does
They
this
usually
problem...
don't do that. They usually stay within a certain territory.
Okay.
We learned that when we had all these meetings about how we could control them, and they don't, like, a lot of people said, oh, why don't you just put them in a truck and take them upstate New York? Because if you did that, they die. You know, they find their own areas. They know where the berries are, they know where the plants are. They kind of stay within a certain area.
So they're very local.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I remember they're localized species,
So, I mean,
wherever they are.
I think what's
personally
changed
invasive
is
with
that
them.
there's no natural predator, and I think that they're just continuing to multiply. And we're seeing more and more and more of them. I mean, in my neighborhood, I think I came up Skinner Street, and I think there were like 6 teenagers all hanging out together, the smaller ones, and then they took off and ran to the field. But
Oh, it sounds like that's your answer then.
Construction changed houses.
yeah, it's true. That actually is true.
No, all right. There was a nice big field on North Main that is no longer.
You know, I would sort of argue on the local part of it, because most of these deer, any wildlife, they're looking for 2 things. Food, actually 3, food, water, and shelter. And deer, just like anybody else, an individual or a human or any animal, is going to move and migrate where they find those sources. And one of the reasons that we're finding so many in a lot of the larger estates is that there's great food sources. Deer love pansies. They,
Flowers in general.
oh, they love flowers. I have a hedge that is just eaten 8 feet up every winter. You know, it's just gone on the bottom. Hostas. All the hostas look like somebody was out there with scissors cutting them.
Mine all trimmed down.
You know, that's what they're looking for. If there wasn't the food source, there wasn't water, they wouldn't be here. They would travel whatever distance that would be required for them to get that. So that's part of the problem. I just, you know, putting fences up everywhere. I personally hate the look of going down a street and there's nothing but these closed gates. You know, like Fran, I've been here most of my life, and you know, there was a time you could walk down First Neck Lane, and there used to be a nice gravel walkway on the west side that went all the way down to the beach, and everybody's driveway was wide open. Now you go down there, and everybody's gates shut, and a great big stockade fence is hiding behind a hedge. I mean, it takes on a whole different look. So.
You don't have to have driveway gates. You can close off sections of your yard.
You gotta think
You don't
about
have to
the
have
weather
a
too,
driveway.
when the leaves drop off the hedge, you're gonna see
You're going to see the fence. Yep, you will.
I don't see mine.
And they're suffering tremendously. I mean, they were starving this year. And the other day, we had 2 fawns on our property. We don't know what happened to the mother. And I guess the fawns died. And, you know, it's very, what they're facing is not an intentional cruelty on our behalf, but.
Yeah, it's, what do? You know, it's, you close them off, push them out to the road so they can't get to your yard and eat, or what do you do?
Well, let's move on here, because Charlie's going to have a fit that everybody's talking in the background. Any other comments?
We'll keep this open.
So I would like to keep it open, and I think we need to go back and take a look at some of the language and readjust some things.
And you said the commission was looking to evaluate it?
Well, you're required to refer under your zoning code for their advice to the Village Planning Commission.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, you don't have their recommendations. I don't know when they meet again or whether they've already discussed this or not, but at the very least, you should keep it open to the next meeting. If not to the meeting after that. It's up to you.
Next meeting is on
26th.
26th. So I make a motion to, I guess, close the hearing on the...
No, not close it. Adjourn.
Close
Adjourn for all purposes.
for all purposes until the 26th.
Second?
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Are we going to ask the planning board to consider this or to make a recommendation?
I'll call for it.
Yeah.
It's going to take a bit.
So then
They've got a lot on their docket.
Okay, let's keep moving on here.
Okay, one communications to the board from the Southampton Artists Association. Southampton Artists Association, SAA, would like to have its annual outdoor park, Art in the Park event this summer in Agron Park on the weekend of July 14th and 15th from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. This outdoor show also requires an early setup time on Friday the 13th from 4 to 7. The sprinkler system will need to be turned off and the bathroom should be open during this time. Please submit this request. We may obtain a permit for this July show. Outdoor show. SAA, thank you all for your past cooperation. SAA is proud to feature this show every year as a popular midsummer village event.
I say do it.
Me too.
I think we've done this before.
Every year.
Yeah,
Every year.
year.
For a
Standard,
long time. We make a motion and
different people involved, but every year it goes through.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, resolutions. Resolved that the reading of the minutes for the public session on May 22nd be dispensed with. Those minutes be accepted as filed by the village administrator, and the actions taken at that meeting be and hereby are ratified and approved. Got a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolved that the claims for the warrants dated June 14th, 2018, totaling $1,190,198.66, warrant 3 general fund, $195,316.18, warrant 2 general fund payables, $131.25, warrant 2 trust fund, $3,802.60, warrant 1 trust expense fund, and $16,075, warrant 1 capital reserve fund, and the village payrolls for the period from May 17th to June 7th, 2018 be ordered and approved. Can I have a motion?
Make the motion.
Second? Second. Discussion, page 1. Comp Alliance, payment towards the workers' comp, $31,008, and that's the New York State assessment fee. CSA Employment Benefit Fund, insurance premium, $28,828.80. First Presbyterian Church, parking lot lease payment for June, $3,000. General Code Publishers, municipal software support, $6,376. Page 2, Kyocera Document Solution lease payments for copier at PD, $1,044.04. Page 3, New York City Health Insurance, payments for June and July totaling $668,210.95. New York State Municipal Workers' Comp Alliance installment on the workers' comp, $433,756. This is one of the ones we changed from permit to workers' comp allowance, and it's a savings of $275,000 a year on the premium. Occupational safety consultants, forklift training, $2,300. Optimum bills for June, $1,637.12. Page 4, shelter freight life insurance, $1,805.12. Page 5, vehicle tracking solutions for June, $1,000. GPS services for June, $1,151.52. Next warrant is the payables warrant. Buzz Chu Chevrolet Olds, garage parts, $1,708.28. Following Jacks, going to page 2. DPW uniforms, $2,194.53. Cash production services for May, $2,170. CC Electronics, radio upgrade for the fire department, $1,474.40. Patrick Collins for fire department medical reimbursement, $1,000. Horwitz Auto Body on page 3, towing for May for the police department, $1,200. Denisi Energy, balance owed on boilers for the Parks Department, $3,733. David Spellman, legal fees for the Ethics Board, $8,910. Samuel Diamond, Fire Department Medical volunteer, $1,000. East End Asphalt Highway Supplies, $1,463.25. Page 4, Fluid Imagery, IT Support, $2,465.50. Richard Fowler, medical reimbursement for being a volunteer for the ambulance and the fire department, $2,000. Galls LLC, PD uniforms, $1,903.40. Richard Gominski, fire department medical reimbursement, $1,000. Page 5, Grodzki Mower Services, purchasing of electric blowers for the park department, $4,263.69. H. Barber and Son Beach Rake Tines replacement, $2,088. Herrick Hardware Building Supplies, $1,691.13. Ronald Hill Ambulance Medical Reimbursement, $1,000. High Tech Fire and Safety Turnout Gear for the fire department, $2,839.25. Island Biogreens Fertilizer for the Parks Department, $2,563. Johnson Electric Construction Corp. Traffic Signal Maintenance for May, $1,400. Page 6, Lewis RCF Energy Fuel Oil, $1,882.04. Mark Maddock, Fire Department Medical Reimbursement, $1,000. Don Mahoney, Ambulance Reimbursement, $1,000. Malvisi Equipment, Garage Parts, $1,710.71. Mayday Communication, Camera Repair, $1,310. More Medical, going on to page 7. Ambulance Supplies, $2,923.82. Morgan Auto Supply, Parts for the Garage, $2,943.78. Nelson Pope and Voorhees, consulting fees for the various ancillary boards, $14,306.20. Norsec and Son, carding fees, $6,083.01. Office of State Control, April fines, $9,995 for the court. Peconic Fire Equipment maintenance on the air tanks and extinguishers for the fire department, $2,155.95. Physio Control, cardiac monitor for the ambulance, $1,118.05. Power equipment plus fire equipment for the fire department, $1,795.43. Joe Prokop, legal fees, $1,750. PSE&G, electric services for May, $16,772.54. Daniel Rayner, fire department reimbursement, $1,000. And same thing for David Rayner, $1,000. Robinson & Robinson, legal fees, $21,623.40. Ronco cleaning supplies, $2,086.54. Arthur Shuck, travel expenses for the litigation trial, $4,222.36. Page 11, Southampton Fire Department, Reimbursement for Chief Conference, $1,703.68. Sprague Operating Reserve, 3,000 gallons of gasoline, $6,542.26. Town of Southampton carting fees, $2,221.95. Velvet Top Products, highway paint, $2,280. Verizon bill for May, $7,983.30, and the Verizon Wireless for May, $5,445.49. Wainscott Sand and Gravel, supplies for the Highway Department, and WB Mason office supplies, $1,094.62. James Luhusky, medical reimbursement for a ZBA member. Page 1 of the June expense warrant, VHB engineering fees for the Agawam Baths, $1,710.66. And capital reserve warrant, to MTech Consulting Engineers and Jeffrey Butler, both continuing work on the design of the ambulance barn. Further discussion? All in favor? Item 3, resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves Sally Levine Chiacco, CPAs, 125 Jericho Turnpike, Jericho, New York, 11753, as the orders for the village and the Justice Court for the fiscal year ending May 31st, 2018, for the combined fee of $36,075. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item 4, resolved that the organizational meeting of the Village of Southampton be scheduled for Monday, July 2nd, 2018, in the Boardroom of Village Hall. The village administrator will administer the oath of office to the village justice and 2 trustees on the steps of Village Hall, weather permitting, at approximately 4:15. The organizational meeting will commence following the oath of office. Can I have a motion?
Make that motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the hiring of Michelle Cardo as a lifeguard at Cooper's Beach for the 2018 season at an hourly cost of $16. Have a motion? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item 6, resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the following individuals as members of the Ocean Rescue Department of the Village of Southampton: Francis Adamczewski, Josh Valuri, Christine Brennan, David Corwith, Neil D. Asierno, Maria Teresa Ellams, Philip Matthews, Dean McNamara, William O'Connor, Nicholas Pobat, Maggie Purcell, Edward Reed, Ann Welker, Christian Archer, Lauren Benet, Danielle Claude, Sean Crowley, Margaret Dougherty, Alessandra Maglaviti, Vinnie McGann, Luke O'Connor, Nicholas Palumbo, Michael Purcell, Brendan Regan, and Mark Vagianos. Have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees...
You're in now.
Sorry. Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby adopts the attached workplace violence prevention policy statement. Can I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Second.
Just want to mention that this one and the program are 2 PESH requirements that need to be done from the Board. All in favor?
Aye.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby adopts the workplace violence prevention policy program dated June 1st, 2018. Can I have a motion? I'll have a second call.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the following budget adjustments for the fiscal year ending May 31st, 2018. Increased minor sales, $122,613.92, and increased highway contractual of $122,613.92. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second? Second. Just a quick discussion on this. We received some money from National Grid for paving some roads, and that's obviously the contractual part of the highway is going up over budget, so I'm just raising both sides of the budget for the previous year. All in favor?
Aye.
And resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby accepts a performance bond in the amount of $15,000 from Life Storage. Have a motion?
Make a motion.
Second? Second. There's a quick description here from, recommended as by the Planning Board. Collecting $15,000 bond. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, discussion items. Fran Adamczewski, beach wedding on 8/11/28.
Married?
Maybe. Congratulations, Fran. Or what?
Not yet.
Okay, so it's from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m.
8 a.m.
125 people. Caterers Hampton Clam Bake on August 11th.
8 a.m.?
That's the setup time.
Oh.
They're going to load in the morning and then
Yeah.
The usual, come in the morning and then return,
No.
set up and then
The guy
return.
next to him was Francis is asking.
They load up before 9.
Yeah.
And then on the removal, that'll be the next day before.
Right, that's the plan.
Okay.
Just please speak to that.
Why doesn't he wait on?
No cold feet either.
Motion to?
So moved.
Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
What day is
Who's the
that?
best
Is that a
man?
weekend?
Saturday. It's a Saturday.
Saturday. All right, Wayne, you want to talk about the next, got a couple of public hearings and resolutions here?
The board has received comments at the various meetings in the past month or so, particular parking concerns, and the next three are all parking issues. One, similar to other businesses where the patrons are basically in and out, you have allowed and restricted parking, 15-minute parking. A request came from Tate's Bake Shop, similar to some other businesses. This would be a resolution to schedule a public hearing for your next meeting on the 26th to amend your vehicle and traffic code to add restrictions to allow 2 15-minute parking spaces limitations in front of Tate's.
Wayne, can we actually make the 26th on that? Because that would be published on the 21st.
So as it relates to Tate's, I just want to say one thing. We could do 2 15 minutes, but then do you want to restrict any additional parking there to like an hour? Because I don't think there's any restriction along there at all.
On the east side of the road, there's no parking. There's no parking and
Yeah, I know there
proximity
yeah.
to the
No time
intersections.
Right.
On the side, there's no time restriction.
But on
time
the west side, there is no time period.
I don't know. It's up
I
to
mean,
you.
it's
I
something
don't.
we need to think about, because I know what that situation was there.
This was their
That-
concern, that they had
Yeah.
vehicles, because there's no restrictions whatsoever, they were parking there for, basically one woman left her car there while she went back to the city for the week.
Yeah, no, that's my point.
Yeah, so maybe
So
we look
15 minutes
into-
is great to run in and out to get something in the bakery, but
Maybe put
you're
2
still
hour.
allowing people to park there all the time. I mean, you have to have some
Maybe do some
form
2 hour
of...
like in other areas.
Yeah,
But it was really obstructing their business
Yes.
and their parking ability.
right, but
because
what
it
I'm
took
saying
up
is
2
that
spots.
person can pull down the street a little further, not in a 15-minute, and still be there.
Right.
So we have to think about that.
Where do we have 2 hours start? In front of,
Cars are like the deer.
once we get to Main Street?
They're trying to find their place.
You actually have in front of the
Yeah,
old
right.
Palma liquor store a similar restriction, although there's no signage there. I think since the liquor store left,
That's where it starts.
Right.
you have actually in the code a 15-minute limitation in front of their
Interesting.
store, currently on the books. Although you don't have
But
signage,
no store.
but you don't have a liquor store,
There's no
so it
liquor
isn't
store.
the same kind of issue
Right.
there. But, so there are some restrictions along there.
And that 15 minutes in front
But
of that
this was what their concern was, just particular the 2 spaces immediately in front of their store.
Right. It's,
But if people are parking there and just leaving the cars there,
I think that this particular instance where they had that, there was also an issue that there was some commercial advertisement on this
Was.
vehicle, and they're trying to get the
Right.
patrons immediately coming out the door.
right?
So that would somewhat resolve this issue also.
and plus, it would give them the same thing we've released.
This is what
given
you've
other
done with
business
many
owners.
other
Yes,
businesses,
we've
so
given them
2
I think it's
spaces.
fine. I just think we should...
We can go further and look at the other streets and other issues as to parking issues.
Right.
All right.
So the only question we have is something that Steve is raising, and whether or not we have enough time to publish it.
To be published on the 21st,
So
every 5 days, yeah.
we could schedule it for the following.
Yeah, it would probably have to, given that publishing time
Yeah.
period. So it would be July 12th. And that would be a Thursday, July 12th, 6 p.m. prevailing time.
So we have a motion to schedule a public hearing for July 12th?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Breeze Lane?
Breeze Lane, you also received complaints, particular in the vicinity of Fordham Road. Fordham being a very narrow street, and the sight distance issues immediately coming out at that entrance was a concern. This is also vicinity, Cooper's Lane, Cooper Street is immediately just to the north of that. So this would be a proposal, not unlike some other proposals you have where at intersections would restrict parking within 50 feet of the intersection, going north and south, both intersections on Breeze Lane, both with Fordham Road and Cooper Street. And this would also, the notice I have here would also go to Thursday, July 12th, 6 p.m.
And a street of interest, Layton Avenue?
We can talk about Layton because that's located in the next one, if you just want to move on this one first.
Okay, Hilda's in general, okay.
The motion to schedule a public hearing, Breeze Lane?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so we can lump it in there.
So the next one is on Hildreth Street in Jennings Avenue, where there's no restrictions whatsoever. You had a resident come in, and their concern was parking along the street, particularly overnight. So similar to Layton Avenue, which you already have a restriction on both sides, no parking
both sides.
midnight to 6.
Yeah, it's actually,
On both sides. However, on Layton Avenue from Hildreth to North Main, there's no parking at all on the south side, which is in front of the condominium at all times. So that's the only difference. Otherwise, you have the same restriction, no midnight to 6.
but they are
Both sides.
parking on Layton Avenue all
Well, that's an enforcement
But
issue.
the residents have a relief on it? So that there is midnight to 6.
There is currently in the code.
Hildreth and Jennings has that?
All of Layton?
Midnight to?
Hildreth and Jennings do not have any restrictions, so this
Okay, that's-
this proposal would be to put restrictions 12 midnight to 6 a.m. on those two streets.
And then all of Layton has that, midnight, or at least from Hildreth down to,
No,
all of Layton is...
all of Layton, except for the portion on the south side from Hildreth to North Main, there's no parking at all times.
Okay.
All right. A motion to schedule a public hearing on Hildreth Street and Jennings Avenue.
And we can add Layton, can you add Layton onto that, to...
Well, there's nothing to amend on Layton.
Oh, we have,
They
right.
have the parking.
Second?
Want to add to it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The only thing I think we need, and Chief, maybe you could take a look, is on Layton Avenue, if there's signage there. I'm
Well,
not
also-
sure there's any signs that give you the hours.
I don't think, well, no, there aren't. And secondly, but Layton, somebody brought up, you just mentioned maybe 50 feet from the intersection. Some issues are parking too close to North Main and blocking
On the
driveways.
south, on the south side, on the north side,
On the north
I
side.
mean, there was a complaint recently, someone from the Layton Avenue condominiums who have parking behind apparently parked in front of a driveway on the north side,
Yes.
which shouldn't have been on the street because of the 12 a.m. to 6 a.m., but more importantly, blocked the driveway.
But if we look, you're saying, like we're looking to do with Breeze, is implement no parking 50 feet from an intersection. And maybe we want to look at part of that on Layton and North Main intersection.
Again, on the south side, you can't have parking at all from Hildreth to North Main.
From midnight to 6.
No, at all. All hours.
I get that. I'm talking about the north side.
So you want north side, I mean, no parking, you can consider that as well.
50 feet. Because, but the midnight to 6, notwithstanding, it's also just a lot of vehicles parking there, and it's tight, getting out of those driveways. There's a lot of driveways there that I have trouble seeing.
Yeah. They have had trouble.
Which are all on the north side. So the midnight to 6 is one issue, which is...
You're talking about on the north side,
correct,
within 50 feet of the intersection?
Correct.
We can add that to that law.
Yeah.
If we're looking to put a breeze, since we're having this discussion on the street, somehow, I'd like, let's toss it in there.
But I think Leighton, the biggest thing was the signage.
Yes.
Because people are parking there all night.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know where the residents are going to go, the condos, because they can't all fit in the back, but...
You put up a fence.
So with that amendment, basically Leighton Avenue on the north side, no parking within 50 feet of the intersection with North Main Street at all hours. That will be added with the Hildreth and Jennings hearing.
Perfect. Good.
Thank you, Council.
Okay, next one is...
Need a motion? Did you get a motion?
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah.
Good. Thanks. Next one is the Continental Shelf Oil and Gas Leasing Program.
I don't know that.
That is evidently the federal government is looking to lease properties offshore, and it was advised through SCOVA to support not allowing them leasing offshore properties. In basic form.
Apparently, so SCOVA has recommended this to the mayor. Other municipalities, particularly on Long Island, they've been seeking to support it, and being that the village fronts on the ocean, it becomes more important for your beach economy and tourist economy as well as our environment. Apparently, exemptions are granted to the program that the federal government is trying to promote, and the state of Florida has received an exemption from this leasing program. So for the same reasons we're seeking, environmental as well as economic and so on. So
Protect
this is,
Mar-a-Lago.
excuse me?
Protect Mar-a-Lago.
Well, I think this is the opposite, but I think state of Florida is looking to protect their economy, among other things, being a very tourist-based as well as based on the ecology. So this is a memorializing resolution
to disallow, to not allow it.
To allow the state of New York, particularly Long Island, receive the same exemption status that the state of Florida received.
To not allow this.
Correct.
Anybody know what's entailed in that federal leasing?
The program?
Yeah,
They're looking to lease offshore oil exploration offshore.
I will tell you that
Oil exploration.
on the east end of Long Island, leasing water properties has become a big issue. The Peconics have a number of leasing programs for agricultural reasons, and a lot of those leased areas are shifting into areas that are marked and channel areas, and it's become very difficult. We have the windmills that they're proposing to put off of Montauk.
Right.
And,
which has received opposition.
I think you're going to see, as density increases, people turning more and more to bay bottoms and ocean bottoms as areas to develop. And it's either windmill blades or doing some kind of shell fishing or whatever, but it does, a lot of that stuff becomes not only an environmental issue, but it becomes a big visual impact to see a huge windmill unit right off of Block Island is pretty incredible.
Is it there already?
No, but they will be. They will be shortly, so.
You know, when I was in Ireland in the fall, there's windmills all over the place. And
Yeah.
I didn't mind them, I have to say. I thought of it off in the distance when you see them. I just thought of it as, I didn't think it was so terrible.
Well,
And
they
they're very
can
pro.
They
they're
can
pro-
be noisy.
Yeah, they're pro, and they're very interested in having them there, so I was surprised. I mean, you have this absolutely beautiful scenery, and
So-
then you have these big white propellers, going around, and I didn't find it, it didn't bother me.
Well, my problem is that I think that the oceans and the bays are our last open space
Yeah, that's true.
that we have. And to pockmark them with all these things is,
So the federal's looking to do this, and we're looking to stand behind the state to ask for an exemption.
correct.
And what's that process? I mean, how do they get it? They have to apply for exemption from the government, and are they
Yeah,
being
well, this is-
granted? Are these, what's,
This
are we
is-
pushing off the inevitable? I mean, what are we battling here, and for how long?
I believe first SCOVA, the Suffolk County Village Association, Officials Association, is trying to promote the state to seek this exemption. And I think the state is trying to seek it. I don't know the exact process and where it stands, but
I'm for it.
You are, for the windmills?
Me too.
No, well,
Well, it's odd, because the reason I say is
gas
where do you
leasing,
push off the
that's-
inevitability?
This is oil and gas leasing, and I'm against it.
Okay.
Me too.
Me too.
The oil and gas leasing, I'm again. Me too.
What do you need, a motion?
Yeah, motion
you
to
have a
adopt.
proposed resolution in your package to memorializing resolution. The only correction, Steve, would be to add an S in resolved. But it completes, finishes with, now therefore be resolved, the Board of Trustees of the Village hereby memorializes its support of the New York State's application for an exemption from the program for the waters of the Atlantic Ocean adjacent to the coastline of the state of New York, and places particular emphasis on the risks of the waters of the Atlantic Ocean adjacent to the village of Southampton and Long Island.
What it says.
Okay, motion?
I'll move.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And Wade, where does the S go?
The last, now therefore
Last.
be it
The last
resolved.
resolved.
Got it.